let's get down to business. A quick bit here. I would like to discuss Kevin Can Go F Himself. It's a good show. I didn't watch it when it was streaming. I watched it when it was on TV. I'm so glad they decided to put it on TV, because putting it on streaming services, I'm sorry, that's just not going to work. Like, I can't watch RuPaul's Drag Race All Stars because you got it on the thing. And I know it's probably because you're doing licensed music, or because you want to keep the nudity, or you want to keep vulgarity, whatever it is. I would rather it be on TV and they just blur out whatever it is. You know what I mean? Like, but let's talk about Kevin Can Go F Himself. Little sweep synopsis of it. It follows the story of a woman who has been in a marriage for 10 years, and she's had enough of her oaf of a husband, who is like literally the mixture of every single sitcom husband's bad traits. There's not a single good trait at all. Not a single one. From her perspective. And every time she's in the room with the guys that are on his side, which include Kevin, their neighbor, Patty, and her brother, and Kevin's father. Whenever they're all in a group together, usually it's sitcom, but Patty is taken out of the sitcom like the very first moment. Like she sees the reality with her. But it's basically showing the cracks of this girl's psyche, Allison, Kevin's wife. Now, a lot of men, I notice, hate Allison for an unknown reason, but I have a hypothesis. They can't sympathize with her. I have yet to hear, if the roles were reversed, women would hate Kevin for what we see Allison doing. But that's a cheap and highly unlikely scenario, as Allison, being a woman, has less earning potential than Kevin, regardless of whose perspective we are seeing. I, however, hate Allison, but not for the obvious reasons. My biggest issue with Allison arises when she's given an out to flee with her adulterer lover, who also cheated on his oblivious wife, who actually, for the time we see her, she acts very passive-aggressive to Allison. But here's the thing. Allison is dumped on by everyone. Every single person in the story, and Patty. We'll get to Patty in a little bit. But this insinuates that that dude's wife had a hunch. And considering how easy he left her, tells us two things. One, their relationship was broken before Allison. So take that homewrecker label off of Allison's rap sheet, okay? And two, if the roles were reversed, Kevin would just leave Allison penniless. And you know what? Put a pen right here about why Allison refuses, and then we'll get back to that. The hate that Allison gets from mostly men viewers stems from the fact that we see all of Allison's mistakes. Some even call her narcissistic, which she isn't. In fact, she feels lowly of herself. And until we see Kevin in the real world, we can't confirm if Allison is a psychopath, which is more likely than a narcissist. But I'm no doctor or anything. I have no degree in that. But I find it laughable and scary that men and some women hate Allison, but her relationship with Patty is used as an excuse to be mean to her. And you know what? Let's talk about the bully, Patty. So prior to Allison's change to reality, Patty was a bully. She was mean to Allison, and she was one of the boys drinking beer and laughing. And now she's the one that's laughed at, if not the fact that she was probably already laughed at before. But we get to see a change a little bit, kind of. Their focus goes more on spreading the hate towards all the women in the house rather than it just being all on Allison. But literally, it's like constantly brought up that Patty bullied Allison for years. Constantly. Even in the last episode when they fight. And this fight is used to displace Allison's inability to give to their relationship, which I would consider proof that Allison is not heartless. She's prideful. A manipulator would have laid it on thick. She had no idea Neil, Patty's brother, was listening. Therefore, to credit Allison's actions with Patty in those moments prior to Neil, the behemoth, strangling her, to have known Patty would come back is almost inconceivable. Literally, Patty could have not have come back and Allison would have been choked out. And then what does Neil think he's gonna... So Neil knows now, as it stands, this is a spoiler review, but you already knew that. Neil knows that Allison tried to have Kevin, the loser, killed. And the last thing we see is Patty and Allison holding hands as Neil is brought to reality with violence, which I'll talk about that later as well. But literally, this is a chaotic spin on events for anyone to think that Allison, because she's using she's using Patty. I'm not going to say she's not. She's using Patty, but she's not to the point where we should be saying, oh, she gets whatever she gets, whatever. Like, there's something we're not seeing about Kevin. And now that Neil's in the real world, we'll see what Neil is doing in his free time, hopefully. Sure, Allison's lack of concern for Patty's feelings on betraying Detective Tammy, her Patty's girlfriend, for the benefit of herself is concerning. But once you're on a path of murder, you are concerned for your freedom. Her whole thing was to know if she knew that she was trying to kill her husband. That was the big issue. This woman is here for a drug bust, and she already said that. But Allison's getting paranoid because she's trying to kill someone. So I understand where her mind is. All of this is crazy. It's all crazy. It's a show. So whatever. But I feel like Tammy is a way better detective than either Patty or Allison is giving credit. But according to her notes, she's unaware of Allison's desire to kill Kevin. She's just jealous, which is possible. But my hypothesis is she left that notebook on purpose, where she would know if it was disturbed or tampered with. But we'll see in the next season. It's cool, because I just heard that they're renewing Kevin Can Go F Himself for a second season. They need to, because it's open ending, like literally the most open ending you could possibly ever give it a show. It just feels like it's incomplete. But honestly, Patty does these things to pay for making Allison's life harder. In the beginning, when Allison tells how she feels about Kevin to Patty, Patty's like kind of in a situation where she just made it harder for her to live in that life. I 100% believe Kevin is abusive mentally, maybe physically. We don't see any bruises, but I do believe it's emotional. And he also does things to control her, even though everyone thinks of it as a joke. Not everyone like in real life, but I mean in the show. The only case Allison haters have against her are the lack of concern for a bully who bullied her the whole time, Patty, the infidelity, and the wanting to kill Kevin rather than fleeing. I called Allison stupid when she has this conversation with a woman, and I think the library. Allison pitches a story that's basically the synopsis of the show. A woman's sick of her husband, she kills him, and all that, yada yada. And the woman at the library asks her, well, why don't you leave? Not you, but the person who she's referring to. And her reply is a self-fulfilling prophecy. But in reality, divorce is stigmatized, something I find unhealthy and annoying, because people are afraid to fail and they think having a divorce is a failure. But like I said, if the rules were reversed, and even if Neil were to call Kevin and say, yeah, your wife is trying to kill you, he's going to divorce her. He's going to have all the money. She's going to be living in a cardboard box. There's no instance in which she could sit there and get more money than a man in this society. Like, a lot of people have these bright ideas about, oh, just divorce, but what are you going to do? I've seen my mom go through divorce, and it was a struggle as I'm an adult, but it's a struggle. It's financially a struggle, especially when you've got the partner on the other side doing whatever they can do to make everything horrible and miserable, not answering phone calls, forcing people to have to go through lawyers in order to get things done. He's the one that has to pay for everything when it gets cut down the middle. If something like, what if she has a prenuptial agreement? She never talked about it. She never explained why she would, like, she explains it, but she doesn't explain it well enough for me to be like, that's a good enough reason. Because like I said, she was given an out to go with that Asian man, and she refused. It's annoying. Being an adult and having to see what goes into a divorce, it's insane. So I can't imagine a child going through the same thing. It was traumatizing. This brings me to the bloat himself, Kevin. Now, Kevin is a mix of every terrible trait any woman or partner could describe in a man, a husband. To have the sitcom aspect there, it's so cool. It's so appropriate and genius, because I understand. I come from, like, my dad was like, I don't know, two different people. Like, he was different in front of people and different at home. But a lot goes into that. Like, I think it had something to do with drinking alcohol. And maybe when Kevin doesn't drink alcohol, because ironically, when he gets the gun, he's kind of serious. He's not in the real world, but he's kind of serious. And he says that he's not drunk. And I think that's really interesting that they make a particular point to say that he's sober. He just had Red Bulls, but that's still not technically not sober, because you have something in your system that's changing how you're acting. And though he's the same, he has more energy than he would without the Red Bulls. So I think The reason why he's not in the real world is because he's taking substances. That's just me personally. That's my hypothesis about it. But back to Kevin. He has Homer Simpson 2.0 stupidity, Peter Griffin's lack of care for others, Doug from King of Queens misogyny, Homer 3.0's laziness, and a sort of self-righteousness found in multiple sitcom husbands from the past, like Desi Arnaz in I Love Lucy, honestly. He has no redeeming qualities. They hint at the fact that he would bear the pseudo compliment, oh, but he a good father, when he assumes or thinks Allison is with child or something. He's like, oh, I'm gonna protect us. You go and half cocked with a gun that's not registered to you. You kill this person, and then the cops come here, and then where'd you get the gun? Oh, it was just outside. Oh, that's not good enough. You're arrested. It's got 10 bodies on it. Like, that wasn't a good idea. And I hate that fact. Like, you cannot be a good father. I'm going to say this for all the women. All the women, please open your ears to this. You cannot be a good father and a bad husband. If you are a bad husband, you are a bad father. Stop saying, oh, they takes care of the kids, but why are you divorced though? If he's such a great father, why are you getting a divorce? If he's such a great father, why do you not like him? If he's such a great father, why this, that, and the third? Don't give me that crap. There's no such thing as good father, bad husband. Oh, I don't like the baby mama. Well, then you shouldn't have put your penis inside her. You shouldn't have put your penis inside her. Oh, she ugly. She looked like a, well, then what do you look like? You put your penis inside her. What do you look like? You kissed her. Oh, she ugly. What do you look like? Honestly. Say it with your chest out. Anyway, I know when we see Kevin in reality, we will get our answer of why won't she just leave him, aside from her perspective already answering this. If she believes he always wins in divorce court, he'll leave her with nothing. The judge will favor him. She can't get a divorce legally. Like I said, the best option for her was to leave. What's he going to do? Send out he might very well send out a search party. But I want you guys to watch Sleeping with the Enemy. I don't know when it came out, but it's so good. It's so good. It kind of reminds me of that. But my hypothesis is Kevin is controlling. Proven when he claims the car is stolen, when he knows where the car is. He didn't just find the gun. He was snooping around. He was snooping around to see I think there was a baby thing she found. She didn't find it. She was pretending to read something and she just took it home because she was reading it and it has to do with babies and stuff. So Kevin was snooping around in the garbage. Yeah, she put it on top. That was dumb. But he was snooping around the garbage nonetheless. Like, he keeps snooping around and playing games. It's super annoying. And I also believe his retraction from the sitcom world can only be achieved through violence, as Neil was, through Patty hitting him with the beer bottle. Kevin, to me, as it stands, isn't a lovable oaf we can just forgive because of his antics. They're hilarious. Oh, they're funny. Oh, it's not funny. It's not funny. Like, I think that's why I love this show so much, because I see Kevin just reminds me of my father, being two different people. Maybe he's happy-go-lucky. People will say, oh, he's goofy and he's not a threat, but he's very much a threat to my sensibilities and my emotions and just being completely a different person in front of people and behind closed doors. I think that's what they're going for. Or at least in front of people. I don't know. I just love Kevin can go F himself. But literally, I hate when they make it seem like just because a guy, oh, he takes care of his kids, just like Dan Connor on Roseanne and then the Connors. He was one of the worst TV fathers I've ever seen in my life. The worst. And people are, oh, he worked hard. No. He worked hard so he could complain about working hard. If you're not gonna just take it and not blame it on your family, then don't work hard and get out of my face. Literally. Super annoying. It's like patriarchy in flesh form. But the moment Allison shows grievances for Kevin's actions, it should cease to be funny. And that's why I don't like Patty, because Patty was like acting like it was funny. And Allison even talks about her doing that. Literally, it's her experience. So like, she should listen. All this laughter is at her expense. Those who like Kevin only see what he allows us to see. When he makes trouble for himself, he forces Allison to have to share in his misery. When he gets home and he wants to have someone to talk to, rather than waiting till morning, he purposefully wakes her up. He found an unregistered gun and kept it in the house without telling his wife, and then claims that makes him a good protector. Do I go on? This guy's terrible. Kevin lovers and or Allison haters may give grace to big issues like that, but still claim Allison is worse. Nonetheless, showing the biggest success of the show. I think the fact that Allison makes mistakes and she's not someone that's perfect. I feel like women have to be perfect in order for their grievances to be taken seriously. Since she's not perfect, y'all are going to talk about how she deserves Kevin or how she deserves to be put in that situation if she doesn't leave. Why is it that we give more grace to men when they have grievances than with women? They have to be perfect. Guys can have allegations upon allegations upon allegations. They can literally go to court and say, yeah, I did it, through a lawyer, and someone say, oh, someone's trying to take him down. Someone's doing this, someone's doing that. Why don't you just admit some men are bad? If almost every woman on earth except your mother and your grandmother maybe aren't bad in your eyes, why can't you accept that some men are bad? Despite the dramatic irony we are privy to being viewers, a loud majority only garnered sympathy to Allison when Neil put his hands on her. And I'm sure a silent minority believes she deserved it. The only way Allison would be absolved of being called the show's villain is for Kevin to be a violent abuser who has trained Allison for 10 years to be meek and a victim, as Detective Tammy deduced from her supposed note. That's why I think if those notes were real, if they're real, I think Tammy's a better detective than we give her credit for, than anyone on the show gives her credit for, because she said she's meek and a victim. If anyone sees that on the outside without knowing you, who is the one that's abusing you? The only person that could be abusing her is her husband. And she is just now getting over the fact that Patty was abusive to her verbally. I don't think it's impossible for Kevin to be physically abusive, but I think it's unlikely, as I assume hints would be placed like Allison gaining unexpected bruises, hiding past injuries, or even showing flinching or timidness to breaking Kevin's rules. There's nothing like that in the show. Kevin can be emotionally and verbally abusive, but the foundation for that is there. But not everyone feels empathy for victims who don't have external scars or bruises, which is interesting. But verbal abuse is harder to prove. And even with proof, some will ask, well, what did she do to deserve it? Was she being sassy? Like, get out of here. I find Allison to be a better person than Kevin, but it's not about that. As it stands, Kevin is oblivious, supposedly. But now Neil will be a part of the reality crew, leaving Kevin's father, Pete, as the last person to bring to the darkness or the gloom and doom of this whole situation before we can get Kevin, I believe. My hypothesis for season 10 really can't be made, as so many plot points were left open by the finale. But what I will say is that Pete might have some information on Kevin and why he acts that way. Why he's so self-centered, why he's so rude, and why he has to constantly have control over, like, what's-her-face. I think that's another thing. The reason why I think he called her and got the car and tried to get the car back and everything is because he's trying to keep her in the sitcom world. I think he knows that he's got power in the sitcom world. And the moment he goes into the real world, she's going to have power. She has agency in the real world. I got that hypothesis from that dude that she was having an affair with. He kind of said, oh, you have control over this relationship. You have control over everything. I think he was trying to give us hints that Allison has the control and power in the real world. And that's why she's powerless when Neil and, well, it used to be Neil and Kevin's dad and him were in the fake world, because they have the power there. But you know what? That's just my hypothesis. But literally, I'm done. I'm really looking forward to season 2. I hope anyone had a problem with Allison, they understand what I'm saying. Because even though we don't see any bruises on Allison, I think that there's more to this. I think he is abusive. I really do think he's literally abusive. And there's so many reasons. There's so many clues to what I've said. I just hope that my hypotheses were correct. Like if you like, share if you like, subscribe if you like. I'm streaming We Happy Few on Twitch. The Princess of Darkness is my channel name. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Let's have a conversation in the comments. Are you guys interested in Kevin Can Go F Himself? Does it seem interesting to you? I highly recommend you watch it. What are your hypotheses? Do you agree with mine? Do you disagree with mine? Let's talk about it. Done.